The champagne glass slipped from Victoria's manicured fingers, shattering against the marble floor of the Grandview Country Club as she stared at the bronze nameplate mounted on the construction trailer outside her dream home. Brooks Construction and Design. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. Natalie Brooks, owner and CEO. The same sister she had just finished humiliating in front of our entire extended family, calling me a construction worker who would never amount to anything more than building other people's dreams. The irony was delicious. After 12 years of blood, sweat, and calculated moves, I wasn't just building other people's dreams anymore. I was building hers. My name is Natalie Brooks, and until 3 hours ago, I thought the worst part of attending my mother's 70th birthday celebration would be pretending to enjoy Victoria's endless monologue about her latest courtroom victories. I was wrong. The worst part was sitting quietly while my older sister systematically dismantled 20 years of my hard work in front of 60 family members and friends, reducing my construction empire to what she called playing in the dirt with power tools. The afternoon had started innocently enough. Spring in Riverside, Oregon, painted the Grandview Country Club in soft pastels, with cherry blossoms framing the floor-to-ceiling windows of the main dining room. I had arrived early, wanting to help Mom with the final arrangements, wearing my best navy blazer over dark jeans. Not exactly cocktail attire, but it was clean, professional, and more importantly, it was me. I had learned long ago that trying to fit into Victoria's world of designer everything was a losing game. Mom had been fluttering around the room, adjusting centerpieces and fretting over the seating chart. At 70, Carol Brooks still possessed the nervous energy that had carried her through 30 years of teaching elementary school and raising 2 daughters on a teacher's salary after Dad died when I was 12. She hugged me tight when I walked in, smelling like the lavender perfume she had worn my entire life. "Natalie, honey, you look wonderful. How's Sophie doing at Oregon State?" Mom's pride in her granddaughter was evident in every word. Sophie was finishing her junior year in business administration, something that filled me with more satisfaction than any construction project ever could. "She's doing great, Mom, made Dean's List again this semester." I pulled out my phone to show her Sophie's latest text about her internship applications. She might spend the summer working with Marcus at the office, learning the business side of construction. Mom's face lit up. "Oh, that's wonderful. She's so much like you, you know. Determined and practical." She paused, glancing toward the entrance. "Victoria should be here soon. She's bringing David, of course, and she's so excited about their new house project." I felt that familiar knot form in my stomach. Victoria's house project. For the past 6 months, every family gathering had included detailed updates about her dream home in Hillcrest Estates, the most exclusive gated community in the greater Portland area. She had been working with some absolutely brilliant construction company to design what she called her forever home. A 5,000-square-foot masterpiece with imported Italian marble, custom millwork, and a price tag that exceeded most people's lifetime earnings. What Victoria didn't know was that her absolutely brilliant construction company was mine. The irony had been building for months. When Marcus, my business partner and project manager, first brought me the Hillcrest contract, I had been focused purely on the numbers. It was exactly the kind of high-end residential project that had built Brooks Construction's reputation. The client was listed as D. Chen, and all communication had gone through David's assistant and the architectural firm. I never made the connection until 3 weeks ago when Marcus mentioned that the client's wife was a prominent attorney named Victoria Chen. Victoria Chen, my sister had been Victoria Brooks Chen since her marriage 8 years ago, but she used her maiden name professionally. The pieces clicked into place with stunning clarity. My sister's dream house, the project she had been gushing about for months, was being built by the company she had spent years dismissing as Natalie's little hobby. I had faced a choice in that moment. I could have disclosed the relationship and stepped back from the project, maintaining family peace. I could have told Victoria and dealt with whatever drama would follow. Instead, I chose a third option. I decided to let the situation play out naturally, curious to see how long it would take for Victoria to realize that her despised little sister was the one turning her vision into reality. 3 weeks later, standing in the Grandview Country Club as my family began to gather, I was about to get my answer. Victoria arrived 45 minutes late, making an entrance that commanded attention from every person in the room. She wore a cream-colored designer dress that probably cost more than most people's monthly mortgage payment, her dark hair styled in the kind of effortless waves that required 2 hours and a professional stylist. David followed behind her, looking slightly overwhelmed as he always did in Victoria's wake, his investment banker composure cracking under the social pressure of family gatherings. "Mother," Victoria's voice carried across the room as she swept toward Mom with arms outstretched. "You look absolutely radiant. 70 never looked so good." I watched from my position near the bar as Victoria worked the room, greeting cousins and family friends with the kind of calculated warmth that had made her successful in corporate law. She was good at this, I had to admit. Reading people, finding the right words, making everyone feel important while maintaining her position at the center of attention. It wasn't until the formal dinner began that things took their predictable turn. Uncle Robert, Dad's younger brother who had always been the family's unofficial master of ceremonies, stood to offer a toast to Mom. To Carol Brooks, a woman who raised two incredible daughters while building a career that touched hundreds of young lives. "We're here tonight because of the love and strength you've shown us all." The room raised their glasses, and I felt the warm glow of family affection that made these gatherings worthwhile despite the inevitable tensions. Mom beamed, her eyes bright with tears of joy. As the applause died down, Uncle Robert continued. "And we should also celebrate the accomplishments of the next generation. Victoria, we're so proud of your success at Morrison, Klein and Associates. Making partner before 40 is remarkable." More applause. Victoria stood gracefully, accepting the recognition with practiced humility. "Thank you, Uncle Robert. I've been blessed with opportunities, and I'm grateful for the education and values this family gave me." I clapped along with everyone else, genuine in my pride despite our complicated relationship. Victoria was brilliant, there was no denying that. She had earned every success through intelligence and relentless work ethic. And of course, Uncle Robert continued, "We can't forget our Natalie, who's built quite a business for herself in construction." The pause that followed was subtle but noticeable. Polite applause, smiles that didn't quite reach eyes, the gentle condescension that had followed me at family gatherings for years. Construction was blue-collar work in their minds, respectable but not quite on the same level as law or finance or medicine. Victoria seized the moment with the precision of a courtroom attorney who had spotted a weakness in opposing counsel's argument. "Yes, Natalie's little construction business," she said, her tone affectionate but unmistakably patronizing. "It's so admirable how she's stuck with it all these years. Not everyone can find success in traditional careers, and there's real honor in working with your hands." The comment hit its target perfectly. Victoria had managed to sound supportive while simultaneously diminishing everything I had built. Working with your hands. As if 12 years of building a company from nothing, managing complex projects, and employing 45 people was somehow quaint and simple. I felt the familiar burn of anger mixed with something deeper. Disappointment, maybe. Or exhaustion from years of this same dynamic. "Actually," I said, keeping my voice level, "Brooks Construction has been doing quite well. We're working on several major projects right now." Victoria's smile never wavered. "Oh, I'm sure you are, honey. Small residential projects can be quite profitable, I imagine. David and I have been working with this absolutely incredible construction company on our new home. The level of sophistication and attention to detail is remarkable. It's given me such an appreciation for what real luxury construction looks like." The room had gone quiet, sensing the undercurrent of tension that always seemed to emerge when Victoria and I occupied the same space for too long. David looked uncomfortable, staring into his wine glass as if it might offer an escape route. "It must be nice," I replied carefully, "working with such a professional team." "Oh, it really is. Brooks Construction and Design, they're called. I mean, funny coincidence with the name, right?" Victoria laughed, a sound like crystal bells that somehow managed to be both beautiful and sharp. "But seriously, the difference between their work and typical residential construction is like comparing a Michelin-starred restaurant to a fast food chain. The craftsmanship, the materials, the project management. It's in a completely different league." I nearly choked on my wine. There it was. Victoria was using my own company as an example of everything her little sister could never achieve. "I'm familiar with Brooks Construction," I managed to say, fighting to keep my expression neutral. "Are you? Well, maybe you could learn something from studying their methods. They're building our forever home in Hillcrest Estates. 5,000 square feet of pure architectural perfection. David and I have been so impressed with their professionalism and attention to detail. The owner, Natalie Brooks, is apparently quite accomplished. It's funny, she has your same name, but obviously she's in a completely different category of contractor." The irony was so thick I could taste it. Victoria was praising me to my face while using that praise to diminish me. She was holding up my work as an example of everything I wasn't capable of achieving. Marcus would have found this hilarious. He had been telling me for weeks that I should reveal the truth, if only to see the look on Victoria's face. But sitting there, surrounded by family members who were clearly uncomfortable with the growing tension, I made a different choice. I smiled, raised my glass and said, "Well, I hope your dream house turns out exactly as you've envisioned it." Victoria beamed, interpreting my words as surrender. "Oh, it will. When you're working with true professionals, there's never any doubt about the outcome." The conversation moved on to other topics, but the damage was done. I had been publicly categorized as the family member who meant well but operated in a completely different realm from real success. The looks of sympathy from relatives, the way conversations shifted when I approached groups, the careful avoidance of any topic that might highlight the perceived gap between Victoria's achievements and my own. I excused myself early, claiming a project deadline that required my attention. Mom hugged me goodbye, whispering that she was proud of me and that Victoria didn't mean anything by her comments. But we both knew that wasn't entirely true.
Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story.
As I drove home through the familiar streets of Riverside, past the modest neighborhood where we had grown up and toward the comfortable suburban house I had bought 3 years ago. In exactly 2 weeks, Victoria and David were scheduled for their final walkthrough of the Hillcrest house. Brooks Construction had delivered the project 3 days ahead of schedule and significantly under budget, something that had earned glowing praise from David's assistant and the architectural firm. Victoria would walk through her dream home, inspect every detail of the custom millwork and imported marble, test every fixture and admire every perfectly finished surface. She would see the bronze nameplate mounted outside the job trailer, the same nameplate that identified every Brooks Construction project site. And then she would realize that her little sister who plays in the dirt with power tools had just delivered the most beautiful home she had ever seen. I pulled into my driveway and sat for a moment in the gathering darkness, thinking about the last 12 years. The small jobs that had built my reputation, the careful financial management that had allowed me to grow without taking on crushing debt, the relationships with suppliers and subcontractors that had made complex projects possible. The nights spent learning new building techniques, studying architectural plans, and building the expertise that Victoria had just dismissed as working with your hands. Tomorrow I would call Marcus and ask him to schedule the final walkthrough for Victoria's house. I would make sure to be there personally to hand over the keys and conduct the final inspection. After all, Brooks Construction prided itself on personal attention to every client. Victoria wanted to see what real professionalism looked like. I was about to give her exactly that. The next morning brought the kind of crisp Oregon sunshine that made everything seem possible. I arrived at the Brooks Construction office at 6:30, an hour before anyone else, needing the quiet space to think through what was about to unfold. Our headquarters occupied a converted warehouse in Riverside's industrial district, nothing fancy but functional, with high ceilings that accommodated our equipment storage and office space that reflected the practical nature of our business. Marcus found me there 2 hours later, sitting at my desk with architectural plans spread across every available surface, and my laptop displaying project timelines. He knocked on my office door frame, carrying 2 cups of coffee from the shop down the street that had become our unofficial meeting place for early morning planning sessions. "You're here early, even for you," he said, settling into the chair across from my desk. Marcus Rivera had been my business partner for 8 years, joining Brooks Construction when we were still small enough to operate out of my garage. He brought 15 years of project management experience from larger firms, but more importantly, he understood my vision for building something different in the construction industry. Something that prioritized quality and client relationships over quick profits and corner cutting. "The Hillcrest project," I said without preamble, accepting the coffee gratefully. "I need to tell you something about the client." Marcus raised an eyebrow. David Chen. Seemed like a straightforward guy when we met with him and the architects. A little overwhelmed by his wife's vision, but that's pretty normal for projects this scale. His wife is my sister Victoria. The silence stretched between us as Marcus processed this information. He knew enough about my family dynamics to understand the implications immediately. Over the years, he had heard my occasional frustrated comments about Victoria's dismissive attitude toward my career choices, though I had tried to keep personal issues separate from business operations. Your sister, he repeated slowly. The lawyer who thinks construction work is beneath proper professionals. That's the one, and she has no idea that Brooks Construction and Design is my company. Marcus leaned back in his chair, a slow smile spreading across his face. No wonder you've been so personally invested in every detail of this project. I thought you were just being perfectionist about the millwork. Over the past 6 months, I had indeed been more hands-on with the Hillcrest project than usual. Every fixture selection, every material choice, every construction detail had received my personal attention. I had told myself it was because the project represented exactly the kind of high-end residential work that could elevate Brooks Construction's reputation in the luxury market. But if I was honest, there had been something deeply satisfying about pouring my expertise into creating something beautiful for someone who had consistently undervalued that expertise. So what's the plan? Marcus asked. Do we tell her before the walkthrough, or do we let her figure it out herself? I had been asking myself the same question since leaving Mom's birthday celebration. The professional approach would be to disclose the relationship immediately, perhaps through David's assistant or the architectural firm. It would prevent any potential awkwardness and maintain the business-like atmosphere that Brooks Construction had built its reputation on. But the personal side of me, the part that had endured years of subtle condescension and public dismissal, wanted something different. I wanted Victoria to see the finished product first. I wanted her to experience the quality of work that Brooks Construction delivered before she knew who was responsible for it. I wanted her to understand, in the most visceral way possible, that her little sister had become exactly the kind of professional she claimed to respect. We let her figure it out, I decided. But I want to be there for the walkthrough. Full client service experience, just like any other project. Marcus nodded, understanding the deeper implications. The house is spectacular, Natalie. Even without the personal connection, it's some of our best work. The custom cabinetry alone is going to generate referrals for years. He was right. The Hillcrest house represented 6 months of meticulous craftsmanship from our entire team. The architectural firm had designed something truly special, but it was Brooks Construction that had brought that vision to life. The imported Carrara marble in the master bathroom had been installed with precision that would make Italian craftsmen proud. The custom mahogany staircase featured hand-carved details that had taken our master carpenter 3 weeks to complete. The kitchen showcased cabinetry that blended traditional craftsmanship with modern functionality, creating storage solutions that were as beautiful as they were practical. Every subcontractor had delivered their finest work, partly because of the generous timeline and budget, but also because of the collaborative atmosphere that Marcus and I had cultivated over the years. Brooks Construction had earned a reputation for treating skilled tradespeople as partners rather than disposable labor, which meant that electricians, plumbers and finish carpenters brought their A-game to our projects. Schedule the walkthrough for Friday afternoon. I told Marcus. Make sure David knows that I'll be conducting the final inspection personally. Standard client service protocol. The rest of the week passed quickly, filled with the usual demands of managing multiple construction projects. Brooks Construction currently had 7 active job sites, ranging from commercial renovations to custom residential builds. Each project required daily attention, problem-solving, and coordination between different teams and subcontractors. This operational complexity was something that Victoria had never understood when she dismissed my work as simple manual labor. Running a construction company required expertise in project management, financial planning, regulatory compliance, client relations, and technical problem solving. I spent my days reviewing architectural plans, negotiating with suppliers, managing cash flow, resolving permit issues, and coordinating the schedules of dozens of skilled professionals. The physical work that Victoria focused on represented only a small fraction of what building a successful construction business actually involved. Thursday afternoon brought an unexpected complication. Sophie called while I was reviewing material invoices, her voice carrying the excitement that always accompanied good news. Mom, you'll never believe what happened. David Chen's assistant called the university placement office. They want to interview me for a summer internship with their investment firm. My stomach dropped. David Chen, Victoria's husband, was apparently expanding his networking to include my daughter. This wasn't entirely surprising, given Sophie's excellent academic record and business administration focus, but the timing felt like more than coincidence. That's wonderful, honey. I managed trying to keep my voice neutral. What kind of internship? Financial analysis and client research. It's exactly the kind of experience I need for graduate school applications. The salary is incredible too, way more than working with Marcus this summer. I felt a familiar protective instinct rise up, the same feeling I had experienced when Sophie was young, and other children made thoughtless comments about her not having a father around. David wasn't malicious, but he moved in Victoria's orbit, and Victoria had never missed an opportunity to highlight the differences between her sophisticated urban lifestyle and my more practical choices. Just make sure you research the company thoroughly, I advised. And remember that you always have options. Marcus would love to have you work with us this summer, and real construction experience might be more valuable than you think. I know, Mom, and I appreciate everything you've built, but this could open doors to finance programs at top schools. You understand, right? I did understand, perhaps better than Sophie realized. She was looking at the same choice I had faced 20 years ago, when Victoria was starting law school and I was learning construction management through night classes and weekend jobs. The path of traditional professional prestige versus the satisfaction of building something tangible with your own expertise and vision. Of course I understand.
Whoa.
Just promise me you'll make the decision that feels right for you, not what other people think you should want. After Sophie hung up, I sat in my office staring at the financial projections Marcus had prepared for our next fiscal year. Brooks Construction was positioned for significant growth, with a project pipeline that extended 18 months into the future and profit margins that exceeded industry standards. We had built something substantial and sustainable, but in Sophie's generation, as in mine, there remained a persistent belief that success meant wearing suits and working in glass towers, rather than creating something lasting with specialized knowledge and skilled hands. Friday morning arrived with the kind of gray drizzle that characterized Oregon Springs, but by afternoon the clouds had cleared, leaving the Hillcrest Estates bathed in golden light that showcased the house at its most beautiful. I arrived at the job site 30 minutes early, wanting to conduct my own final inspection before Victoria and David arrived. The house stood like a masterpiece of contemporary architecture, adapted to Pacific Northwest sensibilities. Clean lines and expansive windows balanced traditional materials, like cedar and stone, creating something that felt both modern and timeless. The landscaping, completed by one of Portland's premier firms, complemented the structure perfectly with native plants and careful attention to seasonal color. I walked through each room slowly, checking details that I had already verified multiple times. The hardwood floors gleamed with a finish that would last decades. The kitchen island, carved from a single piece of walnut, displayed the kind of craftsmanship that elevated functional furniture to art. The master suite featured a fireplace with stonework that appeared effortless but had required our masons' most advanced techniques. Everything was perfect. More than perfect, actually. The house represented exactly the kind of luxury residential project that Brooks Construction had spent 12 years positioning itself to deliver. It was the culmination of thousands of small decisions, continuous learning, and relationship building with the finest craftspeople in the region. Marcus joined me 20 minutes before the scheduled appointment, carrying the leather portfolio that contained all project documentation, warranty information, and operational manuals for the house's various systems. He had dressed more formally than usual, wearing a button-down shirt and khakis instead of his typical work clothes. Understanding that this walkthrough carried significance beyond normal client relations. Final systems check completed this morning, he reported. HVAC, electrical, plumbing, security, everything tested and functional. The smart home integration works flawlessly, and I've prepared a complete tutorial for the clients. Any last-minute issues? Nothing significant. The tile supplier delivered the wrong grout color for the guest bathroom, but we caught it early and corrected it yesterday. The final cleanup crew finished this morning, and the landscaping team completed their punch list items. At exactly 3 o'clock, David's Mercedes pulled into the circular driveway, followed by a second car I didn't recognize. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows of the front entryway, I watched Victoria emerge from the passenger seat, wearing a white blazer and designer jeans that probably cost more than most people's monthly rent. David looked nervous, constantly checking his phone and adjusting his tie as if preparing for an important business meeting. The second car disgorged Victoria's assistant, and what appeared to be a photographer, presumably to document this milestone moment. Victoria had always been meticulous about creating visual records of significant events, part of the personal branding strategy that had served her well in corporate law. I straightened my shoulders, smoothed my hair, and checked my appearance one final time in the hallway mirror. I wore a navy blazer over pressed slacks, my hair pulled back in a professional style, and the kind of understated jewelry that suggested competence without ostentation. I looked like exactly what I was, a successful business owner preparing to deliver exceptional service to an important client. Marcus opened the front door as Victoria and David approached, his smile warm and professional. Mr. and Mrs. Chen, welcome to your new home. I'm Marcus Rivera, project manager for Brooks Construction and Design. I believe you've spoken with my team several times during the construction process. Victoria's smile was radiant as she stepped into the entryway, her eyes immediately drawn to the soaring ceiling and the crystal chandelier that had been imported from a specialist firm in Seattle. Marcus, yes, we've heard wonderful things about your work. This is even more beautiful than the architectural rendering suggested. Thank you. I'm pleased to introduce you to Natalie Brooks, owner and CEO of Brooks Construction and Design. She's here to conduct your final walkthrough personally and answer any questions about your new home. This was the moment I had been anticipating and dreading for 2 weeks. I stepped forward, with the same professional confidence I brought to every client interaction, extending my hand toward Victoria with a warm smile. Mrs. Chen, it's a pleasure to finally meet you in person. Welcome to your dream home. The look that crossed Victoria's face was worth 12 years of patient work and careful planning. Recognition dawned slowly, her smile freezing as her brain processed the impossible reality standing in front of her. Her perfectly manicured hand remained suspended in the air between us, as if completing the handshake might somehow make this situation real. Natalie, she whispered, her professional composure cracking for the first time in recent memory. Yes, I'm Natalie Brooks of Brooks Construction and Design. We've been working on your home for the past 6 months, and I'm here to ensure that every detail meets your expectations. David looked confused, glancing between his wife and me, as if trying to solve a puzzle with missing pieces. Do you two know each other? Victoria's mouth opened and closed soundlessly as she struggled to reconcile the reality of her little sister standing in her dream home, wearing a business blazer, and introducing herself as the CEO of the construction company she had been praising for months. I maintained my professional smile, waiting for Victoria to find her voice while savoring every second of her speechless confusion. The silence stretched across the marble entryway like a taut wire ready to snap. Victoria's face cycled through emotions I hadn't seen since we were children: confusion, disbelief, embarrassment, and something that looked remarkably like fear. Her assistant shifted uncomfortably behind her, clearly sensing the tension but unable to understand its source. David finally broke the silence, his investment banker instincts kicking in as he attempted to navigate whatever social minefield he had stumbled into. Victoria, do you know Miss Brooks? I watched my sister struggle with the most basic social interaction, something that had never happened in all the years I had known her. Victoria Chen, who could command a boardroom full of hostile executives and deliver closing arguments that swayed juries, was rendered speechless by the simple reality of her little sister standing in professional attire in the home she had built. She's my sister, Victoria finally managed, her voice barely above a whisper. David's eyebrows shot up as he looked between us with fresh understanding. Your sister Natalie, the one who works in construction, the phrasing stung, even coming from David's well-meaning confusion. Works in construction, as if I were still the entry-level laborer Victoria had always painted me as in family conversations. I could feel Marcus tense beside me, his protective instincts flaring at the casual dismissal. The one who owns Brooks Construction and Design, I corrected gently, maintaining my professional tone while making the distinction clear. The company that designed and built your home over the past 6 months. Victoria's composure was cracking like ice under pressure. You own the company. But that's impossible. The contracts all showed D. Chen as the client contact. David Chen, yes, I confirmed, glancing at her husband. All our client communications went through his assistant and the architectural firm, which is standard procedure for projects of this complexity. The homeowner often prefers to work through representatives to streamline decision-making. What I didn't mention was that David's assistant had specifically requested this arrangement, explaining that Mrs. Chen was extremely busy with high-profile legal cases and preferred minimal direct involvement in construction details until the final stages. It was an arrangement that Brooks Construction accommodated regularly for busy professionals. Marcus stepped smoothly into the growing tension, his project manager skills shifting into high gear. Perhaps we should begin the walkthrough. I know you're eager to see how everything turned out, and Miss Brooks has prepared a comprehensive overview of all the home's features and systems. Victoria looked like she wanted to flee, but her pride wouldn't allow such an obvious retreat. She straightened her shoulders, attempting to reassemble her professional mask. Of course, I'm just surprised. I had no idea that Natalie had become so accomplished. The word hung in the air between us, loaded with years of unspoken assumptions. Accomplished. As if my success was somehow unexpected, a pleasant surprise rather than the result of 12 years of dedicated work and strategic planning. Shall we start with the main level? I suggested, gesturing toward the open-concept living area that flowed seamlessly from the entryway. I think you'll find that the architectural vision has been executed exactly as specified. We moved through the house like a strange procession. Victoria walked with the stiff posture of someone trying to maintain dignity in an impossible situation, while David seemed genuinely curious about the craftsmanship details I pointed out. The assistant and photographer followed at a respectful distance, clearly uncomfortable with the family dynamics playing out in front of them. The living room showcased the kind of attention to detail that had built Brooks Construction's reputation. The ceiling featured exposed beams crafted from reclaimed Douglas fir, each piece carefully selected and finished to highlight the natural grain patterns. The fireplace surround consisted of locally quarried stone, arranged in a pattern that appeared random but had actually required days of careful planning to achieve the desired visual effect. The stonework is extraordinary, David commented, running his hand along the fireplace mantel. How did you achieve this texture? I launched into a detailed explanation of the selection process, the specialized tools required for shaping each piece, and the installation techniques that ensured both beauty and structural integrity. It was exactly the kind of technical discussion that I loved about my work, the intersection of artistic vision and engineering precision that made construction such a fascinating field. Victoria remained silent, but I could see her absorbing every word. She was beginning to understand that what she had dismissed as working with your hands actually involved sophisticated knowledge and complex problem-solving skills. The kitchen proved to be the real showstopper. The island, carved from a single piece of black walnut, dominated the space with its flowing grain patterns and hand-rubbed finish. Custom cabinetry extended to the 12-foot ceilings, providing both storage and visual drama. The backsplash featured hand-selected subway tiles arranged in a herringbone pattern that added texture without overwhelming the clean lines of the design. This is incredible, David breathed, opening cabinet doors to examine the soft close hinges and full extension drawer slides. The functionality is as impressive as the aesthetics. That was one of our primary goals, I explained, demonstrating the pull-out spice racks and hidden appliance garages that maximized counter space. Beautiful design means nothing if it doesn't enhance daily living. Every storage solution was customized based on typical cooking and entertaining patterns. Victoria finally spoke up, her voice strained. How long did this take to complete? 6 months from groundbreaking to final inspection, Marcus answered. We completed the project 3 days ahead of schedule and 5% under budget. I watched Victoria process this information. In her legal world, projects routinely ran over deadline and over budget. The idea that a construction company could deliver early and under cost probably challenged her fundamental assumptions about the industry. We continued through the house, visiting the home office with its built-in shelving and hidden cable management, the dining room with its coffered ceiling and custom light fixtures, and the master suite with its spa-like bathroom and walk-in closet that resembled a high-end boutique. Each room represented hundreds of decisions and coordination between multiple skilled professionals. The electricians had installed smart home systems that could be controlled from a single tablet. The plumbers had created a radiant heating system that provided invisible comfort while maintaining the clean aesthetic lines. The painters had achieved finishes that looked effortless but required multiple coats and specialized techniques. The bathroom is like something from a luxury resort, David marveled, testing the rainfall shower head and examining the heated floors. Victoria remembered that hotel in Napa where we stayed for our anniversary. This is even nicer. Victoria nodded absently, but I could see she was struggling with more than just appreciation for the craftsmanship. She was grappling with the realization that her little sister had not only succeeded in business, but had succeeded at a level that matched or exceeded her own achievements. When we reached the covered patio that overlooked the meticulously landscaped backyard, Victoria finally cracked. I don't understand, she said, her professional composure finally breaking completely. When did this happen? When did you become successful? The question revealed everything about our relationship dynamics. Victoria had been so focused on her own career trajectory that she had never really noticed mine. She had seen my work as a placeholder, something to occupy my time until I found a real career, rather than the foundation of a growing business. It's been happening gradually, I replied carefully. Brooks Construction has been growing steadily for 12 years. We employ 45 people now and manage multiple projects simultaneously. 45 employees. Victoria's voice rose an octave. You have 45 employees. Marcus stepped in with the pride of someone who had helped build something meaningful. Brooks Construction is one of the most respected residential contractors in the Portland metro area. We're booked 18 months in advance for custom projects like this one. I could see Victoria doing rapid calculations in her head, trying to reconcile the sister she thought she knew with the business owner standing in front of her. 45 employees meant payroll responsibilities, insurance considerations, regulatory compliance, and profit margins that she was only beginning to comprehend. But you never said anything, Victoria protested. At family gatherings, you never mention the scope of your business. This accusation stung because it contained enough truth to be uncomfortable. I had indeed downplayed my success at family events, partly from modesty but mostly from exhaustion with Victoria's condescending reactions to my career choices. You never asked, I replied simply. Every conversation about my work began with your assumptions about what construction involves. It became easier to let you believe what you wanted to believe. David looked increasingly uncomfortable as he realized he was witnessing a family confrontation that had been building for years. Maybe we should continue the walkthrough later, he suggested diplomatically. No, Victoria said firmly, her legal training asserting itself as she regained some composure. I want to understand this. I want to understand how I could have been so wrong about what my own sister was accomplishing. The admission was more honest than anything Victoria had said to me in years. For the first time, she was acknowledging that her perceptions might have been flawed rather than simply assuming that reality should conform to her expectations. You weren't entirely wrong, I said, choosing my words carefully. I did start in construction doing manual labor. I learned framing, electrical work, plumbing, and finish carpentry by working with experienced tradespeople. That hands-on experience became the foundation for understanding how to manage complex projects and build relationships with skilled craftspeople. But when did you transition to owning the company? There was no dramatic transition. I started taking on small projects independently, then began hiring subcontractors for jobs that required multiple specialties. Marcus joined me 8 years ago, when we were ready to expand into larger residential and commercial work. Growth happened organically as our reputation developed. Marcus nodded, adding context that I was too modest to provide myself. Natalie has an unusual combination of technical knowledge and business acumen. She understands construction from the ground up, but she also grasps financial planning, client relations, and strategic development. That's why Brooks Construction has been so successful. Victoria was quiet for a long moment, staring out at the perfectly manicured landscape that complemented the house we had built. When she spoke again, her voice carried a vulnerability I hadn't heard since we were children. I feel like I don't know you at all, she admitted. I've been thinking of you as my little sister who chose a different path, but you've actually built something extraordinary while I wasn't paying attention. The honesty in her statement was disarming. Part of me wanted to embrace this moment of connection, to bridge the gap that had grown between us over the years. But another part remained cautious, remembering decades of casual dismissal and condescending comments. You've built something extraordinary too, I replied diplomatically. Making partner at Morrison, Klein & Associates is a remarkable achievement. But I did it in a traditional way, following an established path. You created something new. You saw an opportunity and built a business from nothing. Victoria paused, shaking her head slowly. And I've been treating you like you were unsuccessful because your success didn't look like mine. David cleared his throat gently. Victoria, maybe we should finish looking at the house. Miss Brooks and Marcus probably have other appointments this afternoon. I appreciated his attempt to diffuse the emotional intensity, but I could sense that Victoria needed to work through this realization fully. She had spent years constructing a narrative about our relative positions in life, and discovering that narrative was fundamentally flawed required time to process. Actually, I said, checking my watch, we have plenty of time. This walkthrough is as important to us as it is to you. We want to make sure you understand every aspect of your new home and feel completely comfortable with all the systems and features. Victoria looked at me with something approaching gratitude. Thank you. I think I need to understand more about what you've built here. We spent the next hour going through every detail of the house with a new dynamic. Victoria asked thoughtful questions about construction techniques, material choices, and project coordination. She began to appreciate the complexity involved in translating architectural drawings into physical reality, especially at the level of quality that Brooks Construction delivered. Marcus explained the scheduling challenges involved in coordinating 17 different subcontractors, the quality control systems that ensured consistent results, and the client communication protocols that kept projects on track. Victoria listened with the intensity she usually reserved for complex legal cases, finally understanding that successful construction management required exactly the kind of systematic thinking and attention to detail that characterized her own professional success. When we finally concluded the formal walkthrough, Victoria stood in the entryway where we had started, looking around her new home with fresh eyes. The space that had initially impressed her as beautiful craftsmanship now represented something more personal. Tangible evidence of her sister's capabilities and achievements. Natalie, she said quietly, I owe you an apology. A significant apology. I waited, unsure how to respond to this unexpected vulnerability from someone who had rarely admitted error in all the years I had known her. I've been incredibly unfair to you, Victoria continued. I made assumptions about your work and your capabilities based on my own limited understanding of what construction involves. I dismissed your achievements because they didn't fit my narrow definition of professional success. The words I had waited years to hear were finally being spoken, but they came wrapped in such obvious pain that I felt no satisfaction in receiving them. You don't need to apologize, I said gently. We see the world through our own experiences. I understand why my career path seemed unconventional from your perspective. No, I do need to apologize, and I need to do better. I want to understand what you've built, and I want our family to understand it too. David stepped forward, extending his hand toward me with a genuine smile. Miss Brooks, this has been an extraordinary experience. The house exceeds every expectation we had, and learning about your company's approach to construction has been fascinating. Thank you for the personal attention you've given this project. I shook his hand, appreciating his diplomatic skills and genuine warmth. Thank you, Mr. Chen. It's been a pleasure working with you, even indirectly through your assistant and the architectural team. Marcus handed over the leather portfolio containing all the documentation for the house, including warranty information, maintenance schedules, and contact details for follow-up service. Everything you need is in here, he explained. And of course, Brooks Construction stands behind all our work. If you have any questions or concerns, please don't hesitate to call. As we prepared to leave, Victoria approached me with hesitant steps, as if unsure how to navigate this new dynamic between us. Would you like to have dinner next week? She asked. I'd love to hear more about your business, and I think David would enjoy learning about the construction industry from someone with your expertise. The invitation was offered with genuine humility, a far cry from the obligatory family interactions we had shared for years. I could see she was trying to rebuild our relationship on a foundation of mutual respect rather than assumed hierarchy. I'd like that, I replied honestly. And maybe you could bring Sophie along. She's considering that internship with David's firm, and I think she'd benefit from hearing about different career paths from both of us. Victoria's face brightened. Sophie is brilliant. David mentioned her application to his assistant. We'd love to spend time with her and help however we can. As Marcus and I walked toward our truck, I heard Victoria and David talking excitedly about their new home, their voices carrying across the quiet street. But now their conversation included references to Natalie's company and appreciation for the incredible level of craftsmanship rather than vague praise for anonymous professionals. That went better than expected, Marcus observed as we drove away from Hillcrest Estates. I glanced back at the house in the rearview mirror, watching Victoria and David take photographs in front of their new home. The bronze nameplate on our job trailer gleamed in the afternoon sunlight, clearly visible in every picture they were taking. Yes, I agreed, feeling a lightness I hadn't experienced in years. I think it did. The ripple effects began within hours of the walkthrough. David called my office first thing Monday morning, his voice carrying an excitement I hadn't heard during our previous interactions. Natalie, I hope you don't mind me calling directly, but I wanted to discuss something with you privately before mentioning it to Victoria. He paused, choosing his words carefully. My investment firm has been looking for construction partners for some of our real estate development projects. After seeing your work and learning about your company's capabilities, I'd like to explore potential collaboration opportunities. I leaned back in my desk chair, processing the implications. David managed investment portfolios worth hundreds of millions of dollars, including several real estate funds that specialized in luxury residential developments. A partnership with his firm could transform Brooks Construction from a regional player into something much larger. That's an interesting proposition, I replied carefully. What kind of projects are you considering? We're looking at developing a luxury resort community about 2 hours south of Portland. 60 custom homes, a clubhouse, and recreational facilities. The initial investment is substantial, but the profit potential is remarkable for the right construction partner. The scope he was describing represented more work than Brooks Construction typically handled in an entire year. It would require expanding our workforce, establishing relationships with new suppliers, and developing systems for managing multiple simultaneous projects on a much larger scale. I'd be interested in learning more, I said, but I should mention that any business discussions should probably include Victoria from the beginning. I don't want family dynamics to complicate professional relationships. David's laugh was warm and genuine. Actually, Victoria suggested I call you directly. She's been doing research on your company since Friday afternoon. Apparently, she spent the entire weekend reading industry publications and looking up your project portfolio online. This revelation surprised me more than David's business proposition. Victoria researching construction industry trends was like me suddenly developing an interest in corporate law precedents. It suggested a fundamental shift in how she viewed my professional expertise. She found some impressive coverage of your commercial projects, David continued. That medical center renovation in downtown Portland apparently won several design awards. Victoria was quite impressed by the complexity of working around an operational hospital. The medical center project had indeed been one of Brooks Construction's most challenging undertakings. We had renovated 3 floors of a working hospital over 18 months, coordinating construction activities around patient care schedules, maintaining strict contamination protocols, and managing acoustic requirements that prevented disruption of sensitive medical equipment. It had required expertise in specialized construction techniques that most contractors couldn't provide. I'm glad she found that information helpful, I replied diplomatically, though privately I was amazed that Victoria had invested so much effort in understanding my work. She also discovered that Brooks Construction has been featured in Pacific Northwest Builder magazine 3 times in the past 2 years. She seemed surprised by the industry recognition your company has received. This conversation was revealing layers of Victoria's weekend research that painted a picture of someone systematically reevaluating their assumptions. She hadn't just looked up Brooks Construction, she had apparently immersed herself in understanding the construction industry well enough to recognize significant achievements and industry recognition. Marcus knocked on my office door as I finished the call with David, carrying a stack of message slips and wearing the slightly overwhelmed expression that usually accompanied unexpectedly busy periods. We've had 12 new project inquiries since Friday afternoon, he announced, settling into the chair across from my desk. Word is spreading about the Hillcrest house faster than I've ever seen. This wasn't entirely surprising. Luxury residential projects often generated referrals among wealthy clients who appreciated exceptional craftsmanship and wanted similar quality for their own homes. But the volume of inquiries suggested something more significant was happening. What kind of projects? I asked, taking the message slips to review the details. 2 more custom homes in Hillcrest Estates, a major renovation in the West Hills, and several commercial projects, including a restaurant renovation downtown. Marcus paused, consulting his notes, but here's the interesting part. 3 of the residential inquiries specifically mentioned that Victoria Chen recommended Brooks Construction. I looked up from the messages, surprised by this information. Victoria was actively referring clients to my company, something that required both confidence in our capabilities and a willingness to stake her professional reputation on our performance. She's been busy this weekend, I observed, thinking about David's description of her research activities. There's more. Linda Patterson called this morning, asking about our availability for a kitchen renovation. Apparently, Victoria gave her a detailed description of our craftsmanship and project management capabilities. Linda Patterson was a longtime family friend who had attended Mom's birthday celebration. She had witnessed Victoria's dismissive comments about my career, making her subsequent recommendation particularly significant. It suggested that Victoria was not only privately reevaluating her opinions, but actively working to correct the misconceptions she had spread among our mutual acquaintances. The morning brought a steady stream of phone calls from potential clients, several of whom mentioned Victoria's enthusiastic recommendations. By lunchtime, Marcus and I were discussing the need to hire additional project managers and expand our administrative support to handle the increased workload. This is exactly the kind of growth we've been planning for, Marcus observed, but it's happening faster than we anticipated. We'll need to be careful not to compromise quality by taking on more than we can handle properly. The concern was valid. Brooks Construction's reputation was built on delivering exceptional results through careful attention to detail and personal involvement in every project. Rapid expansion could threaten the very qualities that made us successful if we didn't manage it thoughtfully. Let's schedule initial consultations with the most promising prospects, I decided. We can assess which projects align best with our capabilities and timeline. Growth is good, but sustainable growth is better. Wednesday afternoon brought an unexpected visitor to our office. Sophie arrived carrying coffee and wearing the determined expression that usually preceded important conversations. She had driven down from Oregon State University, apparently skipping afternoon classes to meet with me in person. "Mom, we need to talk about the internship opportunity with David's firm," she announced, settling into the chair that Marcus had vacated when she arrived. "Have you had your interview yet?" "That's what I want to discuss. I've been thinking about our conversation last week, and I've been doing research on both opportunities." Sophie pulled out a notebook filled with her characteristically thorough analysis. The internship with David's firm would provide excellent experience in traditional finance, but working with Brooks Construction this summer might offer something more valuable. I waited for her to continue, curious about what research had led to this conclusion. I spent the weekend talking to graduate school advisors and reading about different career paths in business. Several professors mentioned that hands-on experience with operations management and client relations is increasingly valuable in today's economy. They said that understanding how businesses actually function, especially in industries like construction that involve complex project coordination, provides a foundation that purely financial analysis can't match. Sophie's reasoning impressed me, but I wanted to make sure she was making decisions based on her own interests rather than family loyalty. "Those are valid points," I replied carefully, "but you shouldn't choose Brooks Construction just because it's our family business. David's firm could open doors to prestigious graduate programs and career opportunities that might be harder to access otherwise." "I'm not choosing based on family loyalty," Sophie said firmly. "I'm choosing based on where I think I'll learn the most valuable skills." Working with Marcus and learning about project management, client relations, and business operations in a growing company seems more educational than filing reports and doing basic financial analysis at a large investment firm. Her logic was sound, and her enthusiasm for understanding business operations reminded me of my own curiosity about construction management 20 years earlier. But I also recognized the pressure she might feel to choose the family business over more conventional opportunities. "What if you did both?" I suggested. "Brooks Construction could offer you a part-time position that works around a part-time internship with David's firm. You'd get exposure to both traditional finance and hands-on business management." Sophie's face lit up with the kind of excitement that confirmed she had been hoping for exactly this solution. "Do you think that's possible? Could I realistically learn meaningful skills in both environments with a split schedule? We could structure it so that you spend mornings with David's team learning financial analysis and investment principles, then afternoons with Brooks Construction learning project management and operations. The combination might be more valuable than either opportunity alone." The idea appealed to me for several reasons beyond Sophie's education. It would strengthen the business relationship with David's firm while providing Brooks Construction with someone who understood both finance and operations. Sophie's analytical skills and fresh perspective could benefit both organizations. "I love this idea," Sophie said, already making notes about how to approach both David and Marcus with the proposal. "It shows initiative and creates a unique learning experience that most business students never get." Thursday brought news that reinforced the growing momentum around Brooks Construction's expanding reputation. Marcus received a call from the editor of Pacific Northwest Builder magazine, requesting an interview about our approach to luxury residential construction. The article would focus on how regional contractors could compete with national firms for high-end projects. This is significant exposure, Marcus explained as we discussed the interview opportunity. The magazine reaches architects, developers, and potential clients throughout the region. It could position Brooks Construction as the premier choice for luxury projects. The timing seemed perfect, given the increased interest from potential clients and David's discussion of larger development projects. Media coverage would validate our expertise for clients who might be unfamiliar with our work and help establish credibility for more complex undertakings. Friday afternoon brought the most unexpected development of the week. Victoria called my direct office line, something she had never done in all the years Brooks Construction had been in business. "Natalie, I hope I'm not interrupting anything important," she began, her tone unusually tentative. "I wanted to update you on some conversations I've been having with colleagues and friends about your company." "Of course, what kind of conversations?" "Well, I realize that I've been misrepresenting your work for years, and I wanted to correct that. I've been reaching out to people who might need construction services and explaining what Brooks Construction actually does." Victoria paused, seeming to gather courage for what came next. "I also wanted to apologize publicly for the comments I made at Mom's birthday party." This suggestion surprised me. Public apologies were not Victoria's typical approach to conflict resolution. She preferred to handle disagreements privately and move forward without dwelling on past mistakes. "That's not necessary," I replied. "We've already discussed this, and I appreciate your apology, but it is necessary," Victoria insisted. "I made those comments in front of family and friends who probably walked away with completely incorrect impressions of your achievements. They deserve to understand the truth, and you deserve recognition for what you've built." Her determination was both touching and slightly overwhelming. Victoria was proposing to make amends in a way that would require significant effort and potential embarrassment for herself. "What did you have in mind?" "I want to host a celebration dinner for Brooks Construction's success. I'll invite everyone who was at Mom's party, plus some business colleagues who could potentially become clients. It would be an opportunity to showcase your company's achievements and correct any misconceptions I may have created." The proposal was generous but complicated. A dinner hosted by Victoria would inevitably become somewhat about Victoria, potentially overshadowing the business's success she wanted to celebrate. On the other hand, her offer represented a genuine attempt to make amends and could provide valuable networking opportunities. "That's a thoughtful gesture," I said carefully, "but are you sure you want to take on that level of effort? Planning a business celebration is quite an undertaking." "I'm sure. I owe you this, and honestly, I'm excited about the opportunity to learn more about your industry. I've been reading about construction management and project coordination, and it's fascinating how much complexity is involved in what you do." Victoria's enthusiasm for understanding my work continued to amaze me. She was approaching construction industry knowledge with the same systematic thoroughness she brought to legal research, treating it as a legitimate field of expertise worthy of serious study. "If you're certain about this, I think it could be valuable for both Brooks Construction and your own professional network. Many attorneys and business people could benefit from understanding what quality construction management involves." "Excellent. I'm thinking about 3 weeks from now, which would give me time to plan properly and allow you to prepare any materials you'd like to share about your company's capabilities." We spent the next 20 minutes discussing logistics, guest lists, and presentation formats. Victoria's legal training was evident in her systematic approach to event planning, and her questions about Brooks Construction services were surprisingly sophisticated for someone who had recently begun studying the industry. As I hung up the phone, Marcus appeared in my doorway with a bemused expression. "Let me guess," he said. "Victoria wants to throw you a party. How did you know?" "She called me an hour ago asking about our project portfolio and whether we had any presentation materials that would help people understand the scope of our work." Marcus shook his head slowly. "I've never seen someone work so hard to undo their own mistakes." The assessment was accurate. Victoria was investing remarkable time and energy in correcting misconceptions she had spent years creating. It suggested both genuine remorse and a fundamental shift in how she viewed our relationship and respective achievements. "She's thorough," I agreed. "When Victoria decides to do something, she doesn't approach it halfway." "The dinner could be excellent for business," Marcus observed. "If she's inviting the same crowd from your mother's party plus her own professional contacts, we could meet some very interesting potential clients." The week concluded with a sense of momentum and possibility that Brooks Construction hadn't experienced since our early growth years. New project inquiries continued arriving daily. The magazine interview was scheduled for the following week, and Victoria's celebration dinner promised to introduce our company to an entirely new network of potential clients. But beyond the business implications, something more personal was developing. For the first time in years, Victoria and I were communicating as professional equals rather than as the successful sister and the little sister who worked construction. She was genuinely interested in understanding my expertise, and I was beginning to appreciate the networking and relationship building skills that had made her successful in corporate law. The balance of power in our family dynamic had shifted permanently. Victoria could no longer dismiss my work as simple manual labor, and I could no longer assume she was incapable of understanding or appreciating what I had built. We were discovering what it meant to be sisters who respected each other's professional achievements rather than competing for validation based on different definitions of success. The consequences of that walkthrough in Hillcrest Estates were continuing to unfold in ways I had never anticipated, creating opportunities for both business growth and family healing that seemed almost too good to be true. 3 months later, I stood in the ballroom of the Riverside Marriott, watching 60 of Oregon's most influential business leaders mingle over cocktails and examine the project displays that showcased Brooks Construction's portfolio. Victoria had transformed her initial dinner party concept into something far more ambitious, a formal business reception that positioned our company as a serious player in the regional construction market. The transformation had been remarkable to witness. Victoria approached event planning with the same meticulous preparation she brought to high-stakes litigation, researching venue options, coordinating with caterers, and developing invitation lists that read like a who's who of Portland area business leadership. She had insisted on hiring a professional photographer and graphic designer to create presentation materials that matched the sophistication of our work. Marcus moved through the crowd with practiced ease, discussing project timelines and construction techniques with architects and developers who had previously been unaware of Brooks Construction's capabilities. He wore a perfectly tailored navy suit that Victoria had insisted on purchasing as her contribution to the company's professional image, and his confidence in these social settings had grown tremendously over the past few months. Sophie worked the room with the natural networking skills that reminded me increasingly of her aunt, but applied to construction management rather than corporate law. Her summer split between David's investment firm and Brooks Construction had given her a unique perspective on both finance and operations that impressed everyone she spoke with. Several graduate schools had already expressed interest in her combination of academic achievement and practical business experience. The response has exceeded every expectation, Victoria said, appearing at my elbow with 2 glasses of champagne. She wore a burgundy dress that complemented her dark hair, and her smile carried genuine satisfaction rather than the calculated charm she typically displayed at professional events. I count at least 8 serious potential clients who've expressed interest in custom residential projects. The guest list reflected Victoria's expanded understanding of Brooks Construction's market position. She had invited not just wealthy individuals who might want custom homes, but also commercial developers, institutional clients, and other contractors who could become strategic partners. Her legal background had proven invaluable in identifying the kinds of business relationships that could accelerate our growth. David seems to be enjoying himself, I observed, watching my brother-in-law enthusiastically describe our resort development partnership to a group of potential investors. His investment firm had officially contracted with Brooks Construction for the luxury community project, a deal that would triple our annual revenue and establish us as major players in large-scale residential development. He's been talking about expanding into construction-related investments ever since he learned about your company's profit margins. Victoria laughed. Apparently successful construction companies generate better returns than he realized. He's considering creating an investment fund focused specifically on partnering with regional contractors for development projects. This revelation illustrated how thoroughly David's perspective on construction had evolved. Investment bankers typically viewed construction as a low-margin, high-risk industry, suitable only for passive investment. Learning about Brooks Construction's financial performance had challenged those assumptions and opened his eyes to opportunities he had previously overlooked. Mom approached our small group, beaming with pride as she had been all evening. At 70, she moved through the reception with energy that belied her age, clearly delighted by the opportunity to see both her daughters succeed in their chosen fields. She had spent the evening introducing Brooks Construction to her extensive network of retired teachers, many of whom had become homeowners with substantial equity and interest in renovation projects. "Natalie dear, I've been talking with the Hendersons about their kitchen renovation. They're very impressed with what they've seen tonight." Mom's voice carried the satisfaction of someone who had always believed in her daughter's capabilities but was finally seeing that belief validated publicly, and Mrs. Rodriguez is interested in discussing an addition to accommodate her mother moving in. The teacher network had proven to be an unexpected source of referrals over the past 3 months. Educators approached major purchases with thorough research and careful consideration, qualities that aligned perfectly with Brooks Construction's methodical approach to project planning. They also maintained strong community connections that generated additional word-of-mouth marketing. Linda Patterson joined our conversation, carrying a folder of information about her upcoming kitchen renovation project. She had become one of Brooks Construction's most enthusiastic advocates after Victoria's public reversal regarding my company's capabilities, and her project had served as another showcase for our residential expertise. "The preliminary designs Marcus showed me are exactly what I was hoping for," Linda said, opening the folder to display architectural drawings. "The way you've solved the storage and workflow challenges while maintaining the home's original character is brilliant." Victoria leaned in to examine the plans with genuine interest, asking technical questions about load-bearing modifications and permit requirements that demonstrated her growing fluency in construction terminology. Her weekend research had evolved into ongoing study of building codes, project management methodologies, and industry best practices. "I'm still amazed by the complexity involved in seemingly simple renovations," Victoria admitted. "I had no idea that moving one wall could require structural engineering analysis and coordination with multiple city departments." This acknowledgement represented the culmination of months of education about what construction management actually entailed. Victoria had moved beyond simple appreciation for finished results to understanding the expertise required to navigate regulatory requirements, coordinate skilled trades, and manage the countless decisions involved in complex projects. The evening's formal presentation began at 8 o'clock, with Victoria serving as Master of Ceremonies, in a role that showcased her public speaking skills while directing attention to Brooks Construction's achievements. She had prepared remarks that positioned our company's growth as an example of Oregon entrepreneurship and innovation, connecting our success to broader economic development themes that resonated with the business community. "Tonight we celebrate not just one company's achievements, but the kind of vision and determination that drives economic growth throughout our region." Victoria began, her courtroom presence commanding attention from every person in the ballroom. Brooks Construction and Design represents the best of Pacific Northwest business values, environmental stewardship, craftsmanship excellence, and collaborative partnerships that benefit entire communities. I watched from the side of the room as Victoria delivered a presentation that exceeded anything I could have prepared myself. She had researched industry trends, economic impact data, and regional development patterns to create context that elevated Brooks Construction from a successful local business to a representative example of broader economic themes. "Over the past 12 years, Natalie Brooks has built more than beautiful homes and commercial spaces," Victoria continued. "She has built a company culture that attracts the region's finest craftspeople, developed supplier relationships that support local manufacturers, and created employment opportunities that strengthen our entire community." The applause that followed was genuine and sustained, reflecting appreciation not just for polite remarks, but for substantive content that demonstrated real understanding of business and economic development. Victoria had transformed herself from someone who misunderstood construction into someone who could articulate its value to sophisticated audiences. Marcus took the podium next, delivering a technical presentation about sustainable building practices and innovative construction techniques that positioned Brooks Construction as an industry leader, rather than simply a successful regional contractor. His confidence had grown dramatically over the past 3 months, supported by Victoria's encouragement and the validation that came from increasing recognition of our expertise. "The future of construction lies in combining traditional craftsmanship with innovative materials and sustainable practices," Marcus explained, using slides that Victoria had helped design to illustrate complex concepts clearly. "Brooks Construction has invested heavily in training our workforce on emerging technologies, while maintaining the attention to detail that defines quality craftsmanship. The presentation concluded with a video tour of our recent projects, including the Hillcrest house that had started this entire transformation. Seeing Victoria and David's home featured as an example of our finest work created a perfect full-circle moment that wasn't lost on anyone familiar with our family dynamics. During the networking period that followed, I found myself in conversations with potential clients whose projects could reshape Brooks Construction's future trajectory. A hospital administrator discussed expansion plans that would require specialized medical facility expertise. A university development officer described campus housing projects that could establish us in the institutional construction market. A restaurant group outlined plans for multiple locations that could lead to ongoing commercial relationships. Each conversation reinforced the evening's central theme. Brooks Construction had evolved from a successful local contractor to a company capable of competing for major regional projects. Victoria's research and presentation had positioned us not as a family business that had grown beyond its origins, but as a sophisticated operation that happened to be family-owned. The response has been extraordinary, David said, joining me near the project displays as the evening wound down. I've had 3 different development groups ask about potential partnerships, and 2 investors want to discuss funding opportunities for expansion. The investment interest represented validation of Brooks Construction's business model and growth potential, but it also presented strategic decisions about maintaining company culture while scaling operations. We had succeeded by prioritizing quality and client relationships over rapid expansion, and any growth strategy would need to preserve those core values. It's exciting but overwhelming, I admitted. 6 months ago, we were focused on steady growth and excellent project execution. Now we're discussing market expansion and strategic partnerships that could transform the entire company. That's exactly what successful businesses experience when they reach inflection points, David replied, his investment background providing useful perspective. The key is choosing opportunities that align with your core strengths while providing sustainable growth rather than just increased volume. Sophie approached us carrying business cards from the evening's networking, her notebook filled with contact information and project details that would require follow-up over the coming weeks. Her summer experience had prepared her well for this kind of business development work, and several attendees had commented on her professionalism and industry knowledge. I've identified 12 serious prospects for custom residential projects, 6 potential commercial clients, and 4 businesses interested in ongoing maintenance contracts. Sophie reported with the thoroughness that characterized her approach to any task. Plus 3 general contractors who want to discuss subcontracting partnerships for projects outside our typical scope. The networking results exceeded our most optimistic projections for the evening. Victoria's guest list and presentation had attracted exactly the kind of clients and partners that could support Brooks Construction's next phase of development, while maintaining our commitment to quality and craftsmanship. As the reception concluded and guests began to leave, Victoria worked the room one final time, ensuring that every attendee left with appropriate contact information and clear understanding of Brooks Construction's capabilities. Her transformation from skeptical sister to enthusiastic advocate had been complete, but more importantly, it had been genuine rather than performative. I can't thank you enough for tonight, I told Victoria as the hotel staff began clearing the ballroom. This exceeded anything I could have imagined when we first discussed the idea. I should be thanking you. Victoria replied, her voice carrying emotional weight that suggested she was thinking about more than just the evening's success. This project has taught me things about business and family that I didn't realize I needed to learn. The acknowledgement reflected months of mutual education and relationship building that had benefited both of us professionally and personally. Victoria's legal and networking skills had proven invaluable for Brooks Construction's growth, while my construction expertise had opened her eyes to business opportunities she had previously overlooked. Marcus joined us as we gathered our materials and prepared to leave, his satisfaction evident in the relaxed confidence he had displayed throughout the evening. Tonight felt like a launching point, rather than just a celebration, he observed. We have the relationships and reputation to pursue projects we couldn't have considered a year ago. The assessment was accurate. Brooks Construction had reached a level of recognition and capability that opened doors to regional and potentially national opportunities. The challenge would be managing growth in ways that preserved the company culture and quality standards that had created these opportunities in the first place. 6 months later, I stood in the construction trailer of our largest project to date, a 200-unit luxury apartment complex that represented Brooks Construction's entry into large-scale commercial development. The project had resulted directly from connections made at Victoria's reception, and its successful completion would establish us as a major player in the Pacific Northwest construction market. Sophie had graduated early from Oregon State and joined Brooks Construction full-time as business development manager, her unique combination of finance and operations knowledge making her invaluable for evaluating new opportunities and managing client relationships. Her success had prompted Victoria to reconsider her own assumptions about traditional career paths and professional achievement. The transformation extended beyond business success to genuine family healing. Victoria and I had developed a collaborative relationship that honored both our achievements and our differences, creating space for mutual support rather than competition. Mom's 71st birthday celebration had been markedly different from the previous year, with Victoria proudly introducing me as her successful business owner sister to guests who hadn't heard that story before. David's investment fund focused on construction partnerships had launched successfully, with Brooks Construction serving as both a portfolio company and an advisor for evaluating potential investments. His deeper understanding of construction economics had made him a more sophisticated investor, while providing our company with access to capital for strategic expansion. The bronze nameplate that had shocked Victoria 6 months earlier now adorned construction trailers throughout the region, representing a company that had grown from local contractor to regional leader, while maintaining its commitment to craftsmanship and client service. But more importantly, it represented the power of persistence, professional excellence, and family relationships that could evolve beyond limiting assumptions. Standing in that trailer, reviewing project schedules, and coordinating with subcontractors via phone calls and emails, I reflected on the journey that had brought Brooks Construction to this point. 12 years of careful planning, quality execution, and strategic relationship building had created the foundation. But it was Victoria's shocked recognition of what I had accomplished, and her subsequent efforts to understand and support that achievement, that had accelerated our growth into something neither of us had imagined possible. The construction industry had taught me that the most impressive structures required solid foundations, careful planning, and patience with the building process. The same principles had applied to building a business and rebuilding a family relationship that had been damaged by years of misunderstanding and missed opportunities. Outside the trailer window, I could see our crew working with the precision and pride that had become Brooks Construction's signature. They wore company uniforms that Victoria had helped design, worked with equipment purchased through David's financing arrangements, and followed project management systems that Sophie had helped streamline. The business had become truly collaborative in ways that extended far beyond my original vision. My phone buzzed with a text message from Victoria. Just drove past the apartment project. It looks amazing, can't wait to see the finished product. Proud of you, sis. The message represented something I had waited years to receive, genuine recognition and pride from someone whose opinion mattered deeply to me. But more than that, it represented the foundation for a relationship that could support both our continued success and our family's future happiness. Brooks Construction and Design had indeed built Victoria's dream house. But in the process we had built something even more valuable, a family dynamic, based on mutual respect, professional collaboration, and shared commitment to excellence in our chosen fields. The bronze nameplate, outside every job site, now represented not just a successful company, but a family that had learned to appreciate each other's achievements and support each other's continued growth. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories, right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up, just click and check them out.